Welcome to the Downtown Long Beach Alliance March webinar session on supporting women in the workplace. My name is Morris Mills. I'm the Research and Public Policy Analyst at the DLBA. So before I introduce our moderator and the speakers, I just wanted to quickly give a recap of this webinar series and kind of the motivations behind it. So originally, Downtown Discussions came out of a necessity in order to keep our organization connected to the needs of our stakeholders. So we covered a lot of resource-based information early during the pandemic, like access to capital or economic recovery. And since then, we've really expanded our scope to include a lot of high-level discussions on topics that we think are relevant to the community. So we've covered public space and the role during a pandemic, the issues of digital inclusion and the digital divide, as well as economic equity and the specific experiences of Black entrepreneurs in Long Beach. So March is Women's History Month, and I thought it would be appropriate to host a discussion on the ever-evolving role of women in the workplace, especially given such a period of intense social change and just structural change that we've seen over the past year. So before introducing the host, I just want to go over some basic housekeeping for everyone. Any questions that you have in the webinar, please enter those into the Q&A function of the Zoom meeting. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, feel free to leave a question in the comments section, and we'll have a staffer look at that and transfer it into Zoom. Following the discussion, our moderator, Temren, and the speakers will answer selected questions from that pool. So given that, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Temren Wroge, who will in turn give introductions to our speakers and begin the event. So Temren serves as the communications manager for the National Women's Business Council based in Washington, D.C. Previously, she worked for Americans for Prosperity, where she drafted, created, and oversaw a communication strategy for long-term efforts to educate people on impactful policy. Temren is a California native, and she attended Cal State Fullerton and also served as an associate delegate in California. And this experience really made her see firsthand the benefits of expressing a concise narrative on crucial policies. Through both her career and personal background, Temren has committed herself to advancing economic opportunities for women of all backgrounds. Temren, thank you so much for joining us. So I'll hand it over to you now and begin the intros and discussions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mom. I really appreciate that kind introduction. As he mentioned, I'm with the National Women's Business Council. It's a federal advisory committee, and it provides advice and policy recommendations for the White House, Congress, and the U.S. Small Business Administration. We advocate for women in business, and we connect your voices to those policymakers. It's a big part of that is advocating and also celebrating the incredible strides that women have made, and what better time to do that than during Women's History Month. So as he mentioned, Downtown Long Beach Alliance has brought together an all-star panel of women, and they are certainly worth celebrating. So we have Julia Hong. She serves as the CEO of Intertrend Communications, Inc. It is a global full-service communications agency based in downtown Long Beach and Plano, Texas. Julia is known for her strong belief that diversity drives creativity. She is a constant contributor to industry thought leadership content, events, and academia. She has been named by the Avenue magazine as one of the 500 most influential Asian Americans, and Fortune's Most Powerful Women has selected Julia as one of the top 10 entrepreneurs in the US. Also joining us today is Rhonda Love. Rhonda is the executive director of Dream Creator Studio, an independent media production company based in downtown Long Beach's East Village. A graduate of California State University, Los Angeles, and the UCLA Entertainment Management Program, Rhonda is well experienced in the management of entertainment properties and community engagement. She has structured media and event partnerships with corporate brands, organizations, municipalities, and works directly with high-profile public figures. Through community partnerships, Rhonda provides media training to youths and has been a mentor of the President Obama My Brother's Keeper Initiative's MBK Alliance since its inception. And also joining us, we have Carolyn Caldwell. Carolyn is currently the president and CEO of St. Mary's Medical Center, a 389-bed academic facility with a level 2 trauma center serving the greater Long Beach community. Carolyn is a healthcare executive with over 30 years experience in the healthcare industry. She is a fellow with the American College of Healthcare Executives, a California Hospital Association Board of Trustee, and ACHE Governor and board member of the Long Beach Chamber of Commerce. Carolyn is a past member of the AHA Region 6 Policy Board and past chair of the AHA Institute for Diversity for Health Management. So thank you all so much, Julia, Rhonda, and Carolyn, for joining us today. Ladies, do you have anything that you want to add before we get this conversation started? All right. So as you know, we're talking about supporting women in the workplace. It's an incredibly timely discussion, especially since we're celebrating Women's History Month and it's coming to an end. I think it seems that we can't talk about supporting women in the workplace without first kind of touching on pivoting, right? Especially during this time. So at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, how did you as a business owner or you as a manager pivot to support your business or to support your employees?
So, Temren, thank you so much for moderating today. It's so wonderful to meet you, even if it's virtually. And also thank you to Downtown Long Beach Alliance for hosting this event, and looking forward to getting to know Rhonda and Julia a lot better. Obviously, being a hospital CEO and during the pandemic, we were really hit head on with the pandemic. And, you know, in most hospitals, 70% of our employees are female. And so realizing that, number one, we were facing something that we've never seen before in healthcare. It was very challenging. And then also realizing that with the majority of our employees being female, there were issues around childcare, their concerns just about even taking something maybe home to their family, preparing meals. And so some of the things that we did as a hospital, we created kind of a mini store, if you will, so that our employees could pick up food, toilet paper. I think everyone remembers what a great commodity that was during the pandemic. So things that they could grab without having to deal with the stress of, you know, going and standing in a long line after they leave work. There were also hotels we partnered with in the community if individuals wanted to maybe stay instead of having to go home to their families, if they could do that. And we also looked for various childcare opportunities in the community. And more than anything, we tried to make sure we were providing that emotional support, you know, for our team members. And being a female myself, someone who has raised a family, I think I was very conscious to maybe some of the concerns some of our female employees had during this crisis, as well as our other employees.
I think for us, when COVID happened, or, you know, happened last year, we were just kind of getting our sea legs with this brand new media company that we were starting out. And so prior to that, I was the assistant to our current mayor, Dr. Robert Garcia, with him for his first term, and assisted him in setting up his administration and everything. And so we were just getting our plan together with this new media organization, and then COVID hit. And so what we found is our programs that we were building out, we needed to kind of move some of those things around, because we discovered that there were so many organizations that needed to make the pivot and with COVID into the media space. And so with us being a media organization, we got a lot of calls from stakeholders in the city and needing assistance with streaming and assistance with, what's a hybrid, streaming show, just different things like that, and just needing that support and understanding this whole new world that we had just entered into. The other thing that we did is we have a partnership with the local workforce organization. And so a lot of our staff is from that program. And so, you know, everyone's, you know, laying off people and furloughing everywhere. And so we really wanted to help our staff and ensure them that their jobs were safe. We had a huge curve with teaching our staff how to work remotely, you know, because we were used to coming into the office, and here we are creating content. How do you do that? And we're not in the same space to share ideas and all of those great things. And so we took the time, a lot of time, to really invest in our staff to make that transition into working in a remote space as well. And then just assuring some of, you know, our women staff that their jobs were, if they needed to take time off for the kids, because now the children are home, you know, that it's okay, that your jobs are safe, it's fine. You know, if you can't do the remote, you know, hours during the time that we're here, do them in the evening after you take care of your family. But we had to be extremely flexible in helping our staff and everyone in the community just make that pivot.
Yeah.
Our situation is very, very similar to what Carolyn and Rhonda were saying, although the category and industry that we're in is different. I think what was very interesting is that this isn't really necessarily specific to female workers, but business in general, is that when we first decided to work from home, our focus as a business was efficiency and productivity. I think that was, you know, when we were setting the foundation and setting up manuals and workplace situation, that was really the focus. Then we quickly, I think almost within a couple of weeks, we realized that should not be the focus. Productivity and efficiency of our staff did not suffer at all. As a matter of fact, people were actually saying that they worked much more efficiently and their productivity went up. So our HR department really pivoted immediately to making sure that the wellness and the communication amongst employees and the senior level managers were really the focus in terms of making sure that people were feeling okay under the circumstances. As for the other basic things like childcare and things like that, we really relied a lot on our managers talking with the staff on a continuous basis. I mean, communication was such a key point during this time, and I think that it did matter.
Right. And I think you touched on that a little bit with communication, but were there, and I think Carolyn kind of mentioned this as well, but as far as the wellness and, you know, the well-being of your employees and you know, of the people, you know, were there specific programs or resources or tools that you utilized for that kind of, you know, kind of going into any of this?
So I will answer that. We are a faith-based organization. We are a Catholic organizations. And so we have, you know, priests and ministers that are always here. And so we really made sure that our spiritual programs were, we expanded those. We also brought in we have an employee assistance program. And it's something that has always been available to our employees where they could call and talk to counselors. But one thing we did differently, we brought them on site so that they could be here if employees needed to speak with them. We created what's called a relaxation room. And it's a place for employees to go if they just need to get away. There are recliners, there's reading materials there where they can just go and decompress. And I think the most important thing was that our ministers and our priests made themselves very readily available, really 24/7, walking the floors, making sure they were there for our employees if they needed help, and then bringing the counselors on site, whereas before they had been available by telephone.
One of the things that we did is we extended our lunchtime for our staff so that they could have some time, of course, for their meals, but then to replenish, go for a walk, and just kind of ease back into, the workload and everything. And that they really appreciated that. The other thing that we did is we delivered lunches to everyone at home, where we're used to being able to put, lunch in the break room for staff. And so we delivered food, healthy food, to their homes so that they could just kind of not have to worry about that. But we definitely increased our lunchtime or breaks times for wellness.
So during this time, video conferencing tool were a major friend of our company. We're an advertising agency, so the staff age skews a little bit younger. So all the happy hours and all the get-togethers that could have happened outside of workplace. Now, during this time, we were doing it together. And much like what Rhonda was saying, during Thanksgiving, during Christmas, and all those milestone dates, we made sure that we were doing it together. And we were talking about this prior to this conference, is that the silver lining was that sometimes when we were doing happy hours, a lot of the people, when it was in person, they selected not to attend for various reasons. During this pandemic, whether it be through Google Hangout or Team or Zoom, we found that the attendance rate really shot up. So there were some silly things that we did, but again, for wellness and togetherness, it really was a key point in terms of making sure that we were all staying in touch virtually. Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that that's really important, right? I mean, not just during the pandemic, but, to keep your employees, engaged, to make sure that they're feeling supported. And I think supporting women in general, that's something that they really attach to, or that they're really looking for in the workforce. We, talk a lot at the council, we talk a lot about barriers to entry. And, Rhonda, we had talked about this previously, but those barriers of entry can be really, really difficult in industries that are, very male dominated. And you were saying that, it's really difficult in kind of the media or the entertainment industry. And so can you talk a little bit about that and some of the things that you've done as far as the programs that you've started to kind of counteract that?
Yeah, definitely. So I went to school and studied broadcast TV film, and so I had this grand plan that I was going to scale to be one of the biggest executives out there, and so I kind of learned in working with some of the major networks that that probably would be a process, and just looking at the ratios of it, being in a very, very heavily male dominated industry. So I had an experience once, and I'll just briefly share it. But there was so much competition in my field and in the industry there. I remember working at a major network, and I doing really well at the job. And I happened to come when someone else had just started the position, and so I ended up getting put in the mail room so that my exposure to the VPs would be minimized. And and I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to have a plan that makes sure that I scale in my life and in my career. And so I have always kind of taken had a love for the independent route as a producer, entertainment management, person. And so it really turned out to be great for me. And so I take that experience, I take my knowledge, and I use that to help others that are coming into the industry, particularly women. I really focus on women because, again, entertainment industry is a very male dominated industry. And so I use our organization to partner with workforce organizations to provide media training, and then we partner with trade organizations in Hollywood so that we can assist with inclusiveness. And it's been really, really great doing that. And then for me too, it turned out to be a really wonderful opportunity because I found out in my course of thinking that I wanted the Hollywood path, it turns out that I'm really more just a creative person who needed to provide an opportunity for me to do this work that I love in media. And so there's quite a bit of people out there who are like that. And so we really just kind of focus on that, you know, and it's creating those opportunities. We have a huge industry, well, career and relationships with several very influential people in Hollywood. And so we take those relationships and we leverage them to connect youth and you know, college students with those opportunities to try to minimize those barriers to entry into that industry.
Okay, yeah. And I mean, and kind of speaking of barriers to entry, Carolyn, I mean, your industry as well, you know, we at the council, we talk about, you know, STEM being, you know, something that we encourage women to get involved in. And it's always, if they do get involved, you know, they primarily turn to healthcare, but it's still just a huge lack of interest. What was your kind of journey through your experience? And what have you seen as far as, you know, being in somewhat of a male dominated, as far as the administration side of healthcare? And how did you kind of break some of those barriers?
Well, thank you for that question. And you're right. It's, you know, healthcare is interesting because the majority of the individuals who work in healthcare are women, but the majority of individuals who are in the C-suite are men. And so that's very true. But I've been in the C-suite since the late 90s. And I was very fortunate in that I had a CEO at the time who was a great mentor, who worked with me and helped me and promoted me. But I realized that so early on in my career, particularly being a COO, then a CEO, I was often the only one at the table. Be it I was the only woman a lot of times, I was definitely the only minority. And so I really took it upon myself to really try and mentor, particularly other young women, and to do whatever I could to help them excel to those ranks. It's gotten better over the years, definitely not perfect yet, but I think that's something that we can do as women, particularly those of us who have moved up in the ranks in whatever leadership position we're in, or like Rhonda or Julie. I think it's important that we continue to be mentors for others, and not just mentors, but also champions and sponsors, and to try and help other women move into more executive or more male, traditionally male dominated positions, especially when we've kind of broken that glass ceiling and gotten there ourselves.
Right. Very interesting. Yeah. And speaking of kind of mentors, Julia, you had kind of shared that, you know, in a previous conversation that we had that not only are you, you know, the CEO of Intertrend Communications, but you also have a venture capital incubator. Would you mind kind of talking a little bit about that and how you choose kind of the companies that you choose to invest in?
So we have this, I wouldn't even call it venture, because it's basically seed fund. You know, venture makes it sound like we're investing in millions and billions, but I do think that we are, but our fund is very unique in a sense that we always focused on creative space, creative people, creative service, creative product. And ironically, that is a category that just don't get enough funding. The banks, you know, it's easier to get loans for real estate, and with real venture capital, it's easier if you're in high tech. So from the beginning, we decided to focus on creative product, that space. We, you know, quite frankly, and maybe this is a confession in a sense, is that as an investor, in the very beginning, we didn't say, oh, let's focus on investing in female founders. And that's the reality. But as our fund grew and sometimes successful, 8 or 9 times out of 10 investment, it's a failure, but that's just, you know, industry, it's pretty average, is that we decided that it is okay to really focus on female founders. And quite frankly, it wasn't easy to find. You know, even after we decided to focus on finding female investors, female incubees, it was very, very difficult to find. It's much easier now, but in the very beginning, we just couldn't find enough. I mean, we did, you know, calls and public calls and what have you. But it has grown to be better. And what is happening right now is that we are reminding ourselves that we should mentor and we should support. And it's very, very easy to forget that because we're business person first. And we used to think that we're business person first and, you know, gender is secondary, but more and more the circumstances is forcing us to really say that, no, if all things are equal, we will choose female incubees. But the key is that it has to be all things are equal. You know, it's not that because you're Asian or you're female that you get that funding. You really do have to be on par first. So that's the situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I believe it's only like 5.6 or something like that percent of U.S. venture firms are women-led. So I mean, it's incredibly small amount, and you know, I think one of the first things is getting women more involved in that side of it as well. And you know, you are doing that, right? Like you are a part of that, and you are absolutely breaking barriers in that aspect, as you all are in your own industries. And getting you at the table, being a part of those decisions is incredibly important. And so from your perspective in your own particular industries, what are some of the, you know, distinct challenges that women of color face that we can, you know, begin to address and kind of strategize? I know it's a big question, but what are some of those challenges?
I'll go first. I think for me, unlearning everything that I know is the biggest challenge, because the manual or the playbooks that are available was not female friendly, or for that matter, minority friendly. You know, we had to really kind of accommodate and apply ourselves to the playbook, the general playbook that was available to us, and they are not female nor minority centric. And, you know, I think all of us here survive that, but at the same time, I think this is a good time to unlearn what we know and really start to write a new playbook that is female centric, that is minority centric. And that is not going to happen overnight. I mean, I have to catch myself all the time to not just go with the flow in terms of what is provided to me as a playbook and say that, no, this isn't the way that it should be. But it's not easy because it's a brand new playbook. So try and error and allowing ourselves to make mistakes, I do think is the challenge and important.
Right.
And Julia, thank you for saying that. I was just talking to a young female executive on yesterday. I think it's learning to be comfortable in an uncomfortable space, right? Because typically, as I said earlier, and I'm sure both of you have experienced the same thing. I mean, early on, and even unfortunately still sometime now, you find yourself in situations where you're the only one at the table, and that can be uncomfortable. But what I shared with this young female executive yesterday is that even though we find ourselves in uncomfortable spaces, the individuals around the table, so if you are sitting in a situation where you're at a board meeting and you're the only female and the rest are male, they're probably just as uncomfortable that we are there. And so how do we embrace that challenge and try to make our presence there comfortable for everyone, right? Because yes, we may be female, we may be minority, but we're also executives, and we're smart and we have ideals, and we're at those tables because we deserve to be there. And so how do we begin to create that space where it's comfortable for everyone at the table?
Wow, I totally agree with both Julia and Carolyn. It's very important, and to speak to what both of you are saying, I'm actually experiencing right now a situation where, I produce film, I direct, which there's so many areas that needs to be improved in that area there, in terms of women being above the line as directors and producers. And so one of the challenges that I'm actually experiencing right now is we're on set right now, we're in production. And so I my position, my authority, my calls in terms of principle of photography. And so and it's a challenge because, like Carolyn said, it's kind of a different space for them, And so the production we just did, we were producing a music group, 8 ladies, a dance performance group. And there were 8 ladies there. And so, here I am, the director, and I'm making these calls, and they're kind of, and our crew, I'm the only girl on my crew. I'm the only woman on my crew. You guys all smiling. I'm the only woman on the crew, and I'm the director. And so I have to gently try to manage and I've got the softest voice. My voice is the softest, but I'm the boss. And so I'm trying to set up shots and kind of operate in, very male dominated environment without losing my voice and my power, my control over what I'm supposed to deliver here. And there was a situation that happened where I just kind of thought first, look, sometimes, and Julia said it the other day, a lot of times that we listen and we can sometimes appear to be more passive. And so for me in this situation, it was really important with 8 young women watching me, knowing that I'm the director of the set now and watching how I'm going to handle this. It was really important that I strategically position myself, amongst all these men that I'm working with. But I say that to say there's so much more work in my industry, in particular, women in film, women as directors, women as producers, being above the line. Oftentimes you'll find us in production coordinator positions, or in that area there, and not necessarily, or writing, but not necessarily being the showrunner, not necessarily being the film exec or the studio exec, and there's so much more work that needs to be done there. And again, as directing and being out on a set, on a crew, most of the time your cameramen, your DPs they're men. And so, and they've been in the business for a long time. It's always been that way. And so now here you are, our world is changing. Here you come, and you're the director, and you got in this position through the independent route and not necessarily the traditional network routes. And so there's so much adjustment that needs to happen. But I would say for sure in Hollywood, women in film on those above the level positions is definitely, there's a tremendous need there.
Yeah, definitely. So, and you had all kind of touched on this before. There's clearly a need, right, for those higher positions. So how do you get there, right? So how do you promote more women or encourage more women to get to those more senior level or higher level positions?
Well, I'll start. For my industry, we're in the age of technology. This is the age of independence, independent filmmakers, independent producers. And so for me, I was able to be a renegade and kind of create my own path, and do the work there, and let that kind of, speak for me. Even though I had a career as an administrator for many years, I always had work that I did in entertainment management. And so after a while, that work begins to kind of speak for itself and creates opportunities, and where, I no longer have to go and look at a network to try to be in this industry. As an independent, I've carved out a niche for myself where I could actually grow my own company. And so just kind of finding your path and building it.
I think what Julia said earlier, and also what Rhonda said, is that, you have to become really good at what you do, right? Is not good enough. It's not enough to just say, well, I'm a woman or I'm a minority, I'm here. But you have to be really, really good. And you have to make sure that you have all the credentials, all the education, but then you have to be good. You have to make a name for yourself. And just realizing that, I do think that there is greater scrutiny, because I often, there's this saying, and I think it's true, that oftentimes, when men go into positions, it's assumed that, they know what they're doing, they're great. And then when a woman or a minority comes in, it's almost like we have to prove ourselves. And well, whether that's true or not, we need to make sure that we are proving ourselves and that we are doing a great job and that we are known as an expert in our field and that we're known for what we do.
No, I mean, being a female and Asian minority person of color, I do get that question quite a bit in terms of that. And sometimes I struggle a little bit because this is going to be our 30th year in business. And when people ask me, I mean, what kind of challenges have you faced? What kind of discrimination did you face? Sometimes I feel a little bit, in some ways, embarrassed, because when you're just really trying to survive, you really don't have that time to think that, oh, I'm being discriminated. There's this restriction against me, the constraint against me, the challenges against me. You're just like trying to make it happen. And I do think, like, looking back, if I have anything that I can say to people who are starting out, female, minority, is that you are going to be underestimated. There's no question about it. I mean, even if the society evolves and even if there are more enlightened environment, you are going to be underestimated. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to make that underestimation challenge your confidence and absorb that negativity and make you lose confidence or just keep on thinking that, oh, I'm being discriminated, I'm being confined in this space? I do think that you just have to prepare yourself in terms of what your objective is and what your strategy is in terms of making it, and just keep on going. And that's, that's something that I think that even now, that's what I'm doing. I mean, even as a CEO, in a lot of corporate environment, you're being underestimated, or in some ways you're kind of like immediately being invisible because you don't act the way that is the formula of a male-dominated CEOs. But sometimes you can take advantage of it, be under the radar, and just do a great job, like Carolyn is saying, while people are not paying attention. That's even better.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that that's a really great perspective to have, and something that some of the mentors that I've had have absolutely shared with me as well. That type of perspective, it can be an advantage to you, and if you're kind of taking that outlook. But as far as some of the experiences you have, what's we talked about challenges a little bit, but what's something that's unique to you, being a woman of color? What's something that is unique that you have, in your particular industry, that you can use, that as an advantage to you?
I think something that I have that's unique, and that's kind of channeling what both Julia and Rhonda said, is that being a woman and then also being a minority, and just knowing that there is probably this expectation or this perception that, you are being underestimated. I make sure that when I'm looking at others, or if I'm bringing other women or anyone into the organization, to make sure that you look at people for what they really bring to the organization. I think I've been known in the industry as someone who I will give people an opportunity that maybe someone else wouldn't hire, because I see something in them and I really want to help and embrace them. And I think that's a characteristic I have, because I know what it's potentially like to maybe be undervalued or feel like, you're not good enough. And so being able to take others that maybe have that same perception and being able to instill that confidence in them and help them grow and develop into great leaders. That's something I love doing.
Wow, I have to agree with both Julia and Carolyn as well. And that whole thing about personal development is really, really important for me. I found that I've always been pretty good academically and everything. But if I had to say, I think for me, where my career and things began to really, really happen for me is when I kind of anchored down and really focused on my personal development. Not being afraid of my voice, not being afraid of my leadership, believing in myself, not being, I call it distracted by, you're a woman or you're this or you're that or whatnot. I'm an African-American, super smart, woman. It is what it is, right? And I don't have time. I make no apologies for it. And I don't have time to be impacted by external perceptions of that, because I'm too busy, like Carolyn said, trying to be good at what I do. And so that's kind of been my guiding light. And when I work with young people, women, with just young people in general, I really try to help them to understand the importance of their personal development, finding your voice, finding who you are, the world that you're in, how you move about it, and what do you need to do to make this world work for you, your career, the relationships work for you. I think that's more important than anything.
For me, in terms of a reminder to myself, is that the commitment that I make in terms of elevating female, whether it be founders or even staff, that's something that I have to constantly remind myself, because it's very easy to forget. Usually female staffers or founders are not hand raisers. They're not the ones that says, mentor me, or, I need help. I mean, and so I have to remind myself that I need to make the commitment and be true to that commitment. And echoing what Rhonda and Carolyn were saying is that even for myself, which has been really rather extremely difficult for me, is that to stand up and share my story. We do have the tendency to think, it's not worth sharing. It's nothing. It's very easy to say that and say, who wants to hear my story? You say it's a success story. I don't feel it. It's very easy to brush it off that way. But more and more, I have been nudging myself, which is really not that easy, is to nudge myself and force myself to be more, to have more exposure, and to make myself available and make myself seen, whether it be sharing my failures or success stories. I felt that I need to make myself a little bit more comfortable about sharing that story, and not always revert back to the background and say, I'm okay being in the background, which is true. But more and more, I'm seeing myself that I have to push myself in the forefront a little bit more.
Okay. Well, for all the people listening, we've talked a little bit about it, or touched a little bit a couple of times, but mentorship is just vastly important, and women entrepreneurs, but women in general, just gravitate towards mentorship, and it can truly make or break women in the workforce, and it truly supports women. So talk to me a little bit about, your mentorship experiences, whether being a mentor yourself or being a mentee. I mean, either one. Give me kind of examples of that and how, it's helped you succeed as, in your current positions.
Well, I've had some some amazing mentors along the way, both male and female, and that to me, I think the value in having someone who is a strong mentor is someone who cares enough about you to give you constructive criticism. I think sometimes we want mentors to just tell us all the good things, but someone who can really say to you, you didn't handle that correctly. You should do it maybe this way next time, or, you're going down the wrong path. And so because of that, I make sure that I mentor as many people as possible, but it's that same conversation. And sometimes when you have to have those tough conversations with your mentees, it's challenging. But I think the way you put it and you let them know, I'm sharing this with you because I care about you. I care about your growth and development. And this is an area where I see that you probably need to focus or that you can grow. And then also I'm real big about sponsorship. I think if we're gonna be mentors, then when opportunities arise for some of the people that we're mentoring, we need to be able to sponsor those individuals to really help them get to the next level, instead of just mentoring them. We need to be able to be that voice for them with others so that they can begin to move into those next levels.
I'll go next. So I love mentoring. I absolutely love it. I call myself a kid of the village. I was mentored, by a lot of, my mom's amazing friends who I called, aunts and uncles, and just, my teachers. And I've always tried to really focus or surround myself with those who could pour into my life and to save me some time. Maybe they got the lesson 10 years ago. It would save me some time, so I don't have to wait 10 years to get those lessons. But I've always just really valued having mentors and having wisdom and sitting at the feet of the elders, and hearing what they have to say. And I'd love to see young people do that more, because, older people have so much wisdom and so much knowledge and so much experience. They can tell us about our past to help us where we're going, as mentors. And so for me, having that type of experience, it was very, very important that I do the same. And so I've spent a lifetime in my adult years just being a mentor to other young people. I was with the city in the mayor's office when the President Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative program happened. And it was just an incredible experience, because we got a chance to take our lunch breaks and go to some of the underserved schools in Long Beach and spend time with the students and to pour into them about, just knowledge and school and education and all of those great things, and even help some of the young people with some personal situations that they probably didn't feel comfortable talking to anyone else about. They were able to talk to us about. And so I get a joy just being able to pour into other people. I think it's really, really important. And I'll say this, it's for me, it's rewarding now, because I've been mentoring for a long time. And so some of the young people that I mentored are now, they're young adults, they're in their 30s, they're having children and building their lives. And sometimes they come back and say, you remember when you said this? And, and it's rewarding that you poured something or shared something with them that they took and build their lives upon. And you've probably forgotten it because you're speaking from your heart, and they come back and remind you. And so those are the rewards I get out of it. But mentoring is important. I'm a mentor for life.
I don't think I could add any more than what Rhonda and Carolyn were saying about the importance of mentorship. And I do think that for anyone that is looking for mentors, there are a lot of people who are, as you can see, who are willing to mentor. From my experience is that nowadays I do tell mentees or people who are looking for mentorship that manage your expectation. I think that sometimes there is a misunderstanding that mentors are people who gives you jobs. opens up career opportunities, introduces you to important people so that your career path, is open up. But that's not it. I think Carolyn said it so correctly, is that they're sharing your experience, and what you make out of the mentorship sometimes is up to you. The mentors do not owe you a career. You owe yourself a career through this mentorship. So a lot of times I think that mentor-mentees relationship is like giver and recipient. But in my experience is that sometimes people that I mentor, I learn so much from them. So it's kind of like a reverse mentorship. And that's the kind of expectation that everyone should have towards mentorship, and not to misunderstand that mentorship is not a job introduction center. And I think that sometimes you do meet some people whose expectation is a little bit different. And when they see that they're not getting a job out of this mentorship, they just stop. And which is really kind of sad, because that's not what you get out of mentorship. I mean, you really do make the best out of mentorship and how you want it to be. So that's something that I'd like to add to what Rhonda and Carolyn were saying about mentorship.
Right. Well, as we continue kind of talking about supporting women, how have we, with the pandemic and everything that's going on, we've talked about kind of shifting towards a more virtual environment. And Rhonda, you had said, at the very beginning, it was something that you had really focused on, getting everyone on a virtual platform. But as far as kind of, childcare needs, I think the pandemic really, really highlighted this childcare crisis with, your businesses and Carolyn, with the medical center. Have there been any flexibilities or anything that has, changed kind of your business structure so that you can better help your employees for childcare?
I can't say that there is anything that changed, because since so many of our employees are females, but during the COVID pandemic, we did put our employees in touch with organizations in the community that still were providing childcare needs. There was some shifting that had to occur, and we were very sensitive to the fact that some of our employees may have had some challenges with childcare, and so we worked with them through those crises.
Well, I think for me, just adapting, being able to adapt to this new space. In this virtual world or remote world, I've had lots of staff and even council members whose children, needed to get in the camera and say hello, and you have to be okay, okay with that. It's actually really nice, to be honest with you. It's just kind of that balance of family and work. But just being able to adapt and be okay, okay with those changes and making some room for life and for family.
Much like what Carolyn was saying, we actually didn't do anything special during this pandemic. I think as a company, I'm proud to say that we have always been very mother friendly. In terms of a workplace. If anything, I think that communication, we try to make sure that the communication between HR and people, parents, this is actually both mother and father. I think during pandemic, the pressure is actually on both parents, and definitely more so towards the mother. And what we're doing is that, if anything, I do think that the communication has heightened to make sure that everyone is okay, and encouraging people to raise their hands if they're overwhelmed, so that people could pick up, and to make sure that there is enormous amount of flexibility so that they can take care of their childcare needs.
Do you think that your like sources of communication, Julia, have grown since the pandemic? Like the ways that you communicate with your staff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that someone joked and said that I have more one-on-ones with the staff members more so than when we were in when we were working out of our office, and that I think is one of the learnings that I personally got, is that that should, I shouldn't say, oh, I'll see them, I'll talk to them whenever. I do think that this is one of the learnings, and one of the good learnings that I got, that I do know that I want to continue regardless of pandemic, is that as a CEO, as the head of the agency, that I do have one-on-ones with different levels of employees within our company.
Rhonda or Carolyn, have you seen that as well, as far as with the pandemic or just being online in general, that you've like upped your communication with your staff?
Well, I think with, because we're a hospital, there were definitely certain jobs that just were not able to be done remotely. We all had to be here. And even though we were in the C-suite, we were here as well. And we made sure, if anything, I think we all became more visible to our employees. We put our mask on, we put our face shields on, and we made sure that we were walking around with our employees, just checking on them, making sure they were okay. Did they have enough personal protective equipment? Did they need anything from us? And so I think if anything, just making sure that we were more visible to our frontline employees. And that's something that we have continued.
I think for us, we definitely made some adjustments. There were some job skills that our staff didn't quite know how can we do them in the remote space through the different, our new communication. And so we adapted and adjusted a lot of our job descriptions, changed some of the schedules and delivery times, and just really kind of adapted to this new way of communicating and delivering our work.
So other than just general, communication and pandemic aside, what do you think are some like core values of your business or of the medical center that truly support, or that you kind of instill that support women?
I think just that compassion around, around caring. I mean, that's who we are. It's in healthcare. I mean, we are caregivers, and which means we're going to care about our employees. I think one thing for me that became very apparent is that when my children were younger, my entire team at that time, I was the chief operating officer, but CEO, CNO, CFO, we all had kids about the same age, right? And so there was a great understanding about school functions, daycare. And now, there's one young person on our team with a young child, and only one. And so what I've had to tell the rest of the team is that, we were all coming along at a time where we were on teams where all of us, we all had kids the same age, and we were a lot more maybe understanding. And so now we have to realize that other members on the team now have young children. So I think as a healthcare industry, because of who we are, because of that compassion that we feel for others, I think that really makes it somewhat easier for us as an industry when we're talking about, our employees, be they male or female, because we made sure that we were there for our male employees too, as we were going through this crisis, because it was something that was very challenging and very stressful, really, to the entire industry.
Right. Rhonda, did you have any core values or anything that kind of you think that like in your business support women in particular, or just in general, that you think kind of I know that your industry can be incredibly difficult, so that you think is like unique to your business?
I kind of tie into what Carolyn was said, and that is just kind of being supportive, especially with childcare needs and with family needs. You know, and we're during COVID. You know, the children are home, and there's lunch meals, and there's there's schoolwork and studies, and all of those great things. And so, just being adaptable to the change, you know, in people's personal lives, you know, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's great running, you know, our organizations and all of the success, but you want to make sure that you tie into what true success is, and that is improving the quality of lives of people, you know. And so for us, we of course, you know, wanted to make sure that our organization, you know, was still scaling and doing what it was supposed to do and meeting our goals and everything. But at the end of the day, it's important, you know, that our staff have a great quality of life, you know, and that we're contributing as employers to that in a positive way.
Right.
I mean, our company's core value, and it's in our mission statement, is that we elevate each other, elevate the community, elevate, you know, our team members. And I think that nowadays it's even more important that we do that. And I think that that is basically what we believe in, is that if you elevate each other, it's going to benefit yourself. And that has always been our core value and what has really worked for us.
So looking toward the future, right? I mean, we've talked a lot about the pandemic and what's been going on, but looking toward the future, supporting women kind of in the next 5 years, let's say, how, like, what do you see for women in the workforce, or what do you hope to see? And how can we make substantial steps forward or towards that?
I'll go first. Is that I think this is really the best time to be a female and minority. It's the worst time as well, but you know, challenges are meant to be taken advantage of. I do think that you know, whatever the motivation is for the society in general, is that there are much more opportunities for female as well as people of color. But you know, I mean, as you guys know, I mean, I've been living in this helpless rage the past couple of weeks because of the violence against Asians, in terms of us having to do a little bit of soul searching in terms of how we can stand up and stop, you know, what's happening. But at the same time, as even as I'm so angry, I'm looking at what are the things that we can do? What are the opportunities that there are? And so I'm not sure if I can look as far as 5 years, especially in this world of marketing and advertising. And I'm pretty sure that it's the same for Rhonda as well too, is that we don't actually look beyond 2 years. 2 years is even like an eternity already. So we're you know, every increment that we look, we're looking at long term is now like 6 to 12 months. I do think that there is an enormous amount of window of opportunity for us to take advantage of as female, as people of color, to stand up and speak up and take advantage of it, because the environment it's not easy, but people are paying attention, and I think that we should all take advantage of that.
And I would agree with you. I think my hope would be that as more and more women and minorities are in you know, positions of power, positions that are not traditionally held by men, it's not unusual, right? We will get to the point where it's not so much, oh, the first female in this position or the first African American. It's, you know, this is just an outstanding person that has an awesome, you know, pedigree that's leading this organization, and boy, we're glad they're here. And so that will be my hope, is that, you know, we can hopefully get to a point one day where we move beyond the first, and it's not I guess, a novelty, but it's just, this is a great, strong individual that's coming to lead our organization or lead this process.
I have to agree with both Julia and Carolyn. For me, I move in a space more, I mean, fully knowing who I am and the world that we're in, I move more so in a space of humanity. And like Carolyn just said, she took the words out of my mouth. I was thinking how great it would be in the future that when you see, someone, you say, that's a hardworking person, that's a really good, and without all the other stuff that we currently, kind of include in that, to just see people, that would be really, really great. And then for my industry, I would love to see the stories of women, more women, stories from women being told. I think that just kind of in my years of experience and seeing the writing perspective for most women, we don't write the blockbusters and the big Star Wars and all of that stuff and everything. So, but if Hollywood or just entertainment and media could get to a point where it puts a lot more value on those stories that are not necessarily the big blockbuster stories, but they're stories that impact humanity. They're stories that change, create social change, things of that nature, and not be afraid to put the monies behind those stories and find that the currency in those type of stories are not necessarily the big profit margins in terms of dollars, but that the currency is social change. So I would love to see that up the road kind of happen more. And I think women are really, really good at that. It would be nice to see just more of our stories being told, more of us helping to produce and create those stories from a standpoint of production, from a standpoint of financing and funding. Oftentimes those type of stories are very challenging to get funding for, but if we could up the road change what we see as the currency in content, I think it would really impact and help our world to become a better place.
Awesome. Well, as we celebrate Women's History Month, just in general, any general advice for anyone listening that are either looking to start a business or kind of climb the ladder of success? Anything that you guys would like to share with them?
Well, I would just say, and I think we've all said it, is that number one, be passionate, whatever it is that you're trying to do, be passionate about it, and then be really good at it, right? Just really, and find some really strong mentors. And I like what Julia says, a mentor isn't necessarily someone that's going to give you a job, but there's someone that's going to shape you and hopefully prepare you, for success. But just really be passionate and really just be good and well prepared for whatever it is that you're doing.
I would say always believe in whatever that is that you want to do or that you're aspiring for. Just believe that it can happen and continue to work towards it as if it's going to happen. Oftentimes, when you're, as Carolyn said, passionate about something, it's probably something or situation that you've been living with for years before others see the manifestation of it. And so to everyone else, it looks like, oh, wow, it was an overnight. No, it wasn't an overnight. It was something that perhaps you believed in and you held true to for a very long time. And so I would say just stick to what you believe in, follow your passion, and just really, really believe in who you are and believe in the ability of bringing it to pass.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much. I really appreciate it. We are going to just kind of open it up to an audience Q&A, kind of see if anyone has any questions for you all, okay? So first question that we have you ever felt pressure to act as a woman first in terms of identity, as opposed to acting in capacity as a CEO, manager, etc.? And does this help or harm your own personal experience?
I think I would just say that I've always felt very comfortable being who I am and representing the role. if I am whether I was a chief operating officer or a COO, making sure that I was performing that job and I was comfortable being in that role. I didn't feel like I had to act, definitely didn't have to act like a man or a woman, but it's just, I'm a professional in this role, and that's what I'm going to do.
The same with me. I think in terms of that is that I don't think that I consciously said, oh, I better be a female first before I'm a CEO. I think that it comes side by side. So, you know, you can't really separate. I mean, this is who I am, and this is a position that I have. So I don't necessarily think that that's something that I've been thinking about it in terms of, okay, do this first and then be this first. So.
Yeah, I agree with both Carolyn and Julia. I don't think about that at all. I just kind of stay focused on what's in front of me and the task at hand, and, you know, do my best with it. But I don't think in the consciousness of, you know, of being a woman. I just try to do a great job at it.
Right. Another question, do you also find that your leadership style, mentorship, and counsel are also welcomed by males in the workplace as another approach to management and problem solving?
I have several young men that I have mentored as well that are now either COOs or CEOs. So definitely I've mentored females as well as males.
I personally think that, and I'm pretty sure that Carolyn and Rhonda have the same kind of experience as well. Sometimes mentors and mentees dynamic is very, very important. Some mentorship just is not right for you. So you have to kind of understand what you could take advantage of. So from a welcome standpoint, it's not really male or female. It's what kind of mentorship are you looking for, and what you get out of it. I think is probably a little bit more important than whether or not my style is welcomed by a male or female. I mean, even females, some females probably don't like the way that, that I approach mentorship either. So I think the dynamic is very, very important. And I think that for mentees, I would think that that's something that you should really kind of have a little bit of homework or a little bit of what your objective is before you go into that relationship.
Right.
I think same here. I mean, for me, my mentoring style, I mean, I've mentored both male and female, and I'm very fortunate that some of the mentees that I've worked with over the years, one has gone on to currently works with Beyonce as a DJ, and another, they're Grammy Award winning and so forth. And, I started out with them when they were, coming right out of high school. And so I'm very fortunate that, I guess my style of mentoring contributed quite a bit to, to the direction and the path of their careers. But my mentor style seems to kind of work for both, men, male or female.
Well, this next question is kind of just in regards to careers in male-dominated fields in general. But Carolyn, let's kind of start with you. Talk to us a little bit about your journey and how you kind of got to where you are, and if you have any kind of words of encouragement or how, what you wanted to do and where you are now.
Well, I started out as my BS degree is in zoology. I have a minor in chemistry. So I worked in a hospital laboratory for 13 years. And so that's where I started my career. And I went back to grad school and got my master's in healthcare administration because I wanted to move into administration. But kind of going to what Julia said, I knew that if I was going to move into administration, number one, I had to have the education to be able to do that. And so I was able to get promoted and become a COO and then a CEO. And so that really has been the journey. And it's changed a lot over the years. Obviously, when I first went into administration, were not very many females. So a lot of my mentors early on were male. I did have a few female mentors, and so I've had to navigate my career along the way, and I've been very happy as I've gotten to this point to see that there are more females and more minorities in the C-suite along the way.
All right, great. I have one last question. And so it says, Carolyn, you had mentioned women often feel pressure to make men feel comfortable when they have a seat at the table. How can women share this responsibility with men rather than taking it all on themselves?
Right. And I think we shouldn't take it all on ourselves, but I think we have to be aware of that. And if there are males that you feel close enough to that you can have that conversation with, because what I tell women that I mentor is that, when we are going into roles, and particularly when you move into a position where, let's say, you're the only female at the table. So if you think about that, we're happy to be there, we're excited, but if you've got a table of 10 guys and you're the only woman there, they have concerns as well. And I've had men ask me that question who I've been close to say, they don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't want to say something to offend you. There may be things that they feel comfortable with each other. And that's, I think a lot of it is just human nature, right? People tend to feel more comfortable around people like them. And so now you are added to the equation and you definitely have a right to be there. You deserve to be there. You're qualified to be there, but you are different. And I think what I'm saying is that we have to respect that difference. And we have to realize that we have to work with these guys, and may take time for there to be a comfort level. And Julia or Rhonda, I don't know if you've had that same experience. It's just taken time.
Yeah, I have. And so my path into the industry that I'm in was not the traditional path. So I found myself sitting at some major tables with some C-level corporate execs, and they're looking like, okay, how did you get here? Where did you come from? And I'm sitting there and I'm representing the talent that they all have an interest in, or the intellectual property or entertainment property of some sort. And so it's an adjustment for them because, for one, I didn't come through the traditional ranks, you know what I mean? So that there's no connection there. Yet I'm at this very influential table in a very influential position. And so they have to kind of come to terms with that. And it is an adjustment for them. And so what I really try to do is just, I focus on the work. I don't focus on any of the, male, female. I don't focus on any of that. I focus on the business at hand. I focus on the professionalism. I focus on the goals, the missions, what we're there to achieve. And that kind of works for me, and it kind of adjusts the mindset, and creates just a different environment where we can just stay about, the mission and the goal and the professionalism.
And I concur with both Carolyn and Rhonda. I think for me, it's first of all, you shouldn't get intimidated. So the pressure, I think, is first on ourselves. I mean, as Carolyn said, everyone is kind of feeling uncomfortable, but the main pressure is on yourself in terms of when you're the only person that is different than the other people. You do feel that intimidation and the pressure to say something much more smarter because you feel the pressure to have to do that. And I think that you have to kind of watch yourselves. The table that you're invited to sit at always have a business objective and strategy. And I think if you key in on that, and if you focus on that, and then if you key in on what you can make, what kind of contribution you make, and make sure that everyone feels that it is a safe environment. that maybe some uncomfortable discussions will take place. And you know, if some inappropriate things are being talked about, then you should feel comfortable about calling it out. And that's really a difficult step, because you're the only one, and maybe all the other people don't feel uncomfortable and you're the only one that feels uncomfortable. But I think more and more you should really, in a very civil way, say that you know, this is not an appropriate conversation, or that you're making me feel uncomfortable because of what. And I think if you earn the trust at the table, more and more uncomfortable discussions can take place and more productivity will be achieved.
Well, thank you ladies so much. I mean, I can't even imagine, we've learned so much from this conversation, you know, whether finding and using your voice, keying in on the contributions that you can make, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think the audience has so many takeaways from you all. I'm so glad that I was able to have this discussion with you all. And I really appreciate being a part of it. I think we are going to turn it over to Mo.
Yeah, I just wanted to concur. I mean, I've learned a lot just through this and meeting you guys over the past couple of months. So Temren, Carolyn, Julia, Rhonda, thank you so much for participating. This is recorded, so anyone watching, if you go to downtownlongbeach.org/downtown discussions, you can see this recording will be up there in addition to any of the past webinars that we've done. And be on the lookout for upcoming events in April and May. So really excited for what's ahead. And again, just want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to participate and really share your you know, your story, your personal journey as far as this topic goes. So that's it for me. But yeah, thank you everyone so much. And
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.